Welcome back to more special programming here from the border in McAllen, Texas. I'm Steve Gruber, and it's been quite a fact-finding mission, to say the least, here over the last few days. We're going to have a lot of special programming for the remainder of this week as well as we go from here. We're going to board the airplanes and head off to Washington, D.C. for CPAC the next couple of days. Donald Trump will be in town for CPAC. We'll be covering that front to back as conservatives at the Conservative Political Action Conference get together for their annual event there in the shadow of Washington, D.C. And I just want to say that here in Texas, what an educational experience it has been. It really has been. Americans for Prosperity put this tour together. And I've seen the border a number of times. I've been down to Del Rio. I've been to Eagle Pass, but it's been a number of years. And so to see it now is totally different. And yes, as we toured along the Rio Grande and saw sections of Mexico and sections of the United States. In fact, at one point we were in Texas and Mexico was north of us. It happens. It's remarkable to see the amount of debris, evidence of the invasion on the other side, backpacks piled up and different things. And coming up here on the program, we're speaking to Francis Suarez, the mayor of Miami, who took the opportunity to speak with me for several minutes about Miami being a place where legal immigration has really worked. You see, the difference between where we have been and where we are today is legal immigration versus illegal immigration, which for anybody watching it makes no sense, except for 2019, which there was a surge in 2019 of about 800,000 or 900,000 people. Other than that, for several years, through George W. Bush's administration, that of Barack Obama, that of Donald Trump, a 20-year span there, you're looking at 300,000 to 400,000 illegals a year. Last year, with the getaways, you're looking at 3.2 million. 8 times higher. 8 times higher. In fact, the number of getaways estimated over the last few years, 1.7 million. And so if you've been with us this week, you've heard people say to us things like, well, McAllen, Texas, which is a beautiful city, 200,000, it's modern, it's nice, it's clean. In fact, it's one of the safest cities in America, according to surveys that are done and the different factors that they apply to that. It's one of the safer cities in America. But just behind the curtain, just out of view, you have the drug cartels that are profiting greatly here. And look, there are a lot of people that are cashing in on several different angles of this. You've got the charities that are involved looking after the folks that come in. They get paid every day. You've got the cartels that are obviously cashing in on several different aspects of this, whether it's moving people or drugs or whatever it might be. They're making money back and forth constantly. And some would argue, and I guess I can't dispute this, some would argue that in large part, in parts of the border, it is the cartels that have operational control of what's happening on a daily basis as to who goes across, who does not, who's left to go across unmolested, who maybe doesn't make it across at all because, well, they met a different sort of an end. Now, currently, McAllen, Texas, there have been big surges here. In fact, there were places yesterday during our tour because the Libre Initiative had George Martinez and Kennedy LaFave lead our tour yesterday, if you will. And we found places where there were encampments that were now abandoned and processing centers that were now abandoned. What happens is you have these big surges at a point in the border. It hasn't been that way here for about 12 months. Still get illegals across the border here that bust in, but not in the big numbers. It's all moved to the west now. It's down into Eagle Pass. It's down into Del Rio. It's farther into Arizona, New Mexico, California. And at the moment, the numbers are down just a little bit. But this crisis touches all of us. And I guess that was the one thing. And the one takeaway I get from everybody that I talk to, is pretty similar. And that is this. We need to go back to remain in Mexico. We need to adjust our asylum parameters and the rules involved with asylum so that, anybody just can't say, hey, I'm seeking asylum. Well, there need to be specific rules that are applied to that more strictly than they have been recently. You talk to people here in McAllen, Texas, and you will find, and we talked to people at lunch yesterday, we talked to people, at get-togethers yesterday during the day and in different places. they feel the same way. Apply the laws that were being applied to begin with. Law and order to begin with. Not this nonsense, well, we can't do anything about it. It's a broken immigration crisis. It's a broken border. Nonsense. Nothing has changed from the time that Donald Trump left office until today, except that they stopped enforcing the laws that were in place. You didn't go from 400,000 in 2020 to 3.2 million in 2023 without there being a dramatic change in enforcement. And look, we talk to people whose friends and family are on Border Patrol and ICE. Morale is tough. I don't want to say it's awful, but it's tough. Now we saw Border Patrol agents going back and forth across the border. We witnessed all that. Saw buses going back and forth across the border. One of the buses, maybe I mentioned this yesterday, but I'll repeat myself, but watching the buses come across the border empty. And I say to a guy there that's with Voice of America who's covered it extensively down here and lives in McAllen, Texas, I said, well, why is it that those buses are coming out empty? And he says that's simple, because they have a contract. They're all getting paid. Everybody's getting paid with your money, by the way. Everybody's getting paid. Catholic Social Services, Lutheran Social Services, Bethany Christian Services, and a whole list of others, nonprofits, all getting paid. All making money, getting paid with your tax dollars, all of them. And for them, you have to wonder, do they even want the crisis to be solved? Because if it's solved, well, that money dries up. That source of revenue dries up. Meanwhile, in Michigan, and I'm going to look into this a little bit more, tell you more about this coming up. In Michigan, they have become the latest state to say, hey, would you like to bring a migrant family, as they call them, migrant? These are illegal aliens, by the way, legal technical term. Migrant families into your home. Do you want to bring a migrant family into your home? You can house them and so forth. And obviously there'll be money involved with that too. I'm going to guess there'll be money and incentive for that too. Just like if you're a foster parent or whatever you might be. So you're going to foster a family coming in from outside of the country illegally. And, so that's going on as well. So, Francis Suarez is coming up. You're going to like to see this interview. He is the mayor of Miami. He is a conservative. Miami, by the way, while the rest of the country goes crazy, Miami has become much more law and order. Miami's murder rate is on the decline, dramatically on the decline. Violent crime in general in Miami is declining rapidly. And this is a city, a poster child city, for legal immigration. Legal immigration works in America. Rushing the border and overrunning the border, that does not work. Illegal immigration destroys the fabric of the border, of the states, of the cities. You see what happens in Chicago and New York and elsewhere. But if it's done right, you can be like Miami, and we'll talk about that more. Plus, get all your big headlines after the break here on the Steve Gruber Show.